You're not who I fell in love with. She reminds me of the old you. Vibrant, sexy, alive. That's what my husband said to me while I was still sore from surgery, my body stitched together like a rag doll, and my heart barely holding on. He left me for his secretary. While I was fighting to recover, he was busy falling into bed with someone who still had the energy to pretend he was interesting. He thought I'd disappear quietly, but he picked the wrong woman to betray. While he was busy falling in love with his secretary, I was setting a trap, and by the time Sunday came, so did something he never saw coming. My name is Claire. I'm 41, a full-time nurse at the city hospital, and a mom of two, Lily, who's 9, and Max, who just turned 6. For the last decade, I've balanced blood pressure monitors and bedtime stories. I'm the kind of woman who holds a patient's hand through a heart attack, then races home to pack lunches and fold tiny socks. My husband, Daniel, and I had what I thought was a partnership. He worked in finance, long hours, lots of travel. I made it work. I handled the chaos, the kids, the bills, the birthdays. I bent in every direction so he could stand tall. And I didn't complain. Not when I missed sleep, not when I missed holidays, not even when I missed myself. So when I was told I needed a hysterectomy, something serious, something life-changing, I thought, finally, it's my turn to be taken care of. Just for a little while. I thought Daniel would be there, holding my hand like I'd done for him 100 times. But the man who picked me up from the hospital wasn't my husband anymore. And the silence in the car ride home told me everything I needed to know. The first sign came the morning after I got home from the hospital. Daniel didn't bring me coffee. That might not sound like much, but after 12 years of marriage, it was our thing. Even on our worst days, he brought me coffee. I was still on pain meds, barely able to shift in bed, and I remember thinking, maybe he just forgot. But by mid-afternoon, when I finally limped into the kitchen and saw an empty cup on the counter, his cup, not mine, I felt it. The shift. He wasn't forgetting. He was detaching. The kids were quiet around him too, like they could feel the tension but didn't understand it. Lily kept asking when Daddy would play Uno like he promised. Max just wanted a story before bed, but Daniel kept glancing at his phone like the world was ending somewhere without him. Then came the late nights. Meetings, he said. Emergencies. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m., and the other side of the bed was cold. I called him. No answer. He came in at 3:30, smelling like hotel soap and excuses. He didn't even bother lying creatively. I had to crash on a coworker's couch, he muttered, like it was nothing. But I know that smell. I'm a nurse. I know cheap perfume, body spray, the lingering scent of someone who isn't me. And it hit me in that moment like a second surgery. He wasn't just distant. He was gone. It got worse. I found a receipt for a hotel in his coat pocket, 2 nights after I was discharged. A bottle of wine, a dinner for 2. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I took a photo of the receipt with my phone and slid it back where I found it. Then came the ultimate insult. Her email. His secretary. Vanessa. I wasn't even snooping. He left his laptop open on the kitchen counter. An alert popped up. Last night was amazing. You make me feel like I'm the only woman in the world, counting down the days until we don't have to sneak anymore. I stared at that screen like it was a horror movie. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the mug I was holding. This wasn't a crush. This wasn't a mistake. He was in love. He had replaced me. Not after I died. Not after we divorced. While I was still bleeding from surgery and limping down our hallway. And then, 3 days later, he said it. I was sitting on the couch, holding a heating pad against my stomach when he came in, leaned on the doorframe, and dropped it like a bomb. I didn't sign up for this version of you. I decided to start a new life without you. She reminds me of the old you. Vibrant, sexy, and alive. I just stared at him, wondering if this was real. If this was the man who once wrote me love letters in the break room of the hospital where we met. Then he added the final cut. You can stay through the weekend. I'll take the kids to Mom's on Sunday. After that, we'll figure things out. We'll figure things out. Like I was some logistical inconvenience. Like I was the houseplant he forgot to water. That night, while he snored in the guest room, yes, he had moved himself there without a word, I lay awake in pain. Not from the surgery, from the betrayal. From the reality that I had given everything to a man who couldn't stand by me during the hardest moment of my life. But the pain turned into something else. Clarity. He thought I was too weak to fight back. But I wasn't broken. I was healing. And the woman he left behind? She was about to become the woman who took everything back. The next morning, I got up before the kids. My stitches still ached, and I moved slowly, but my mind was already racing. I made myself a cup of coffee. My coffee, just how I like it, and sat down at the kitchen table with a notepad. I wasn't writing a grocery list. I was writing a strategy. You don't spend 15 years as a nurse without learning how to stay calm under pressure. I've resuscitated heart attack victims and soothed dying patients in their final moments. My marriage, it was just another kind of emergency, one that required a clear head and a steady hand. First, I called a lawyer, a good one, the kind I never thought I'd need. Her name was Evelyn Rhodes, and I found her through a referral from a nurse friend whose ex-husband had tried to run off with half her pension. Evelyn didn't ask me how I was feeling. She asked me what I wanted. I want the house, I said. I want full custody, and I want to make sure he regrets ever thinking he could do this to me. There was a pause. Then she said, then we start by documenting everything. So I did. I went full detective. I backed up the email from Vanessa. I took screenshots of the text messages he carelessly left open on his iPad. He hadn't even bothered to change his passcode. I photographed the hotel receipt, the wine charges. I even recorded a few of his late-night phone calls by setting my phone next to the door while he paced in the hallway whispering things like, just a few more days. She's not taking it well, but she'll go. Oh, I'd go. Right after I'd gutted him, legally and emotionally. I also began tracking our finances. As a nurse, I had never really needed to know the ins and outs of our accounts. He handled that part. But now, I learned quickly. Evelyn advised me to open a separate checking account in my name only. I quietly redirected my paychecks, transferred a portion of our joint savings into a legal retainer, changed my beneficiaries on my life insurance. Then came the moment that told me I wasn't crazy. I found the lease. Buried in a stack of printer paper in his briefcase was a lease agreement. A new apartment, 2 bedrooms, signed by him and her, dated a week before my surgery. So this wasn't spontaneous. He hadn't just fallen out of love. He had planned my replacement while I was still trying to choose the color of my hospital gown. I scanned the lease, saved a copy, and added it to the folder titled, For Evelyn. All the while, I played the part. I smiled when the kids were around. I nodded politely when he said we'd talk more soon. I acted tired because I was, but I also knew it made me look harmless. He thought I was fading. He thought I was defeated. But I wasn't mourning anymore. I was preparing. The Friday before the deadline he'd given me, Sunday, I took a half day off work and visited a trusted colleague in administration. I explained my situation, quietly, calmly, and she handed me exactly what I needed, a copy of his recent HR travel records. He had filed multiple overnight business expenses that coincided perfectly with the dates I had receipts and texts for. He had used his company credit card to cheat on his wife while she was healing from surgery. I didn't even have to get mad. I just had to stay focused. And by Saturday night, everything was ready. My lawyer had the evidence. My bank account was safe. My kids were with my sister for the weekend under the pretense of a sleepover. And Daniel? He was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, thinking he had won. But Sunday hadn't arrived yet, and he had no idea that I wasn't packing to leave. I was packing to make sure he'd never recover. Sunday morning came like any other, except it wasn't. I made breakfast. The smell of scrambled eggs and toast filled the kitchen, and Daniel walked in like he still lived here, like he still belonged. He kissed the top of my head out of habit. I let him. It would be the last time. He thought I was packing to leave, just like he'd so generously allowed. What he didn't know was that the bags by the door weren't mine. They were his. I had spent all of Saturday going through the house, every drawer, every box in the garage, every sock he'd never find again. I packed it, labeled it, sealed it tight. Then I changed the locks. I had also visited the property management office, because remember that lease he signed with Vanessa? Yeah. Well, I paid them a visit and told them, politely, that I had no legal objection to them moving forward with his application, as long as they understood he had no access to the marital home. I provided proof of ownership. My name was the only one on the deed. And with the help of Evelyn, my lawyer, we served him the first official document, a cease and desist from entering the property without my written consent. But that wasn't even the best part. That morning, just before he got up, I remotely canceled all his access to our joint credit cards. Every single one. Then I rerouted the security code on our bank accounts to my phone alone. When he tried to check his balance, he'd find two things: an error message and a freeze notice filed by my attorney. And just to add a bit of sparkle to the chaos, I had the passwords to his work email. He had never changed them. So I forwarded one particularly incriminating message from Vanessa, something about our little love nest, to his supervisor. Anonymous sender. No traces. No remorse. I didn't say a word about any of this. I just watched him eat his eggs like he had a future. Then, right as he put his plate in the sink, I said, "Your bags are by the door." He looked at me confused. "What?" "I didn't pack what you wanted me to. I packed what you're going to need." He blinked like his brain couldn't quite process the fact that I was holding the upper hand. I handed him an envelope, sealed, stamped by my lawyer. He didn't open it at first. "What is this?" he asked. "It's what happens when you underestimate the woman who kept your world spinning." He opened it. I watched his face as he read. Official notice of divorce proceedings, a detailed list of frozen accounts, and a legal warning that any further attempts to remove property from the home would result in police intervention. "Claire, Jesus, you're being dramatic." "No," I said calmly. "I'm being strategic. You've been reckless. I've been patient." Then I handed him my phone and pressed play. It was one of the recordings, from when he was whispering to Vanessa about how I wasn't taking it well and how he'd figure something out. His face went pale. "You recorded me?" he asked, voice rising. "I'm a nurse. We document everything." And then, just as he opened his mouth to argue, his phone buzzed. 1, 2, 3, 4 alerts. From his bank, his job, and one final message from Vanessa. "Call me as soon as you can. Something's wrong. HR just contacted me. What's going on?" That's when the panic set in. That's when he realized this wasn't a conversation. It was a reckoning. He stood there, reading that message from Vanessa, his mouth opening and closing like he was drowning in air. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "What did you do?" he finally asked, his voice low, almost pleading. "I protected myself," I said. "Something you clearly forgot how to do." He stormed into the living room, phone in hand, and called her. On speaker, not realizing I was still recording. Vanessa answered on the second ring, her voice sharp and nervous. "Daniel, I got called in by HR. Someone sent them our emails." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You said this would stay between us," she hissed. "You said no one would find out." Daniel snapped. "I don't know what she did. She's crazy." I finally spoke, loud enough for her to hear. "She's not crazy. She's educated, licensed, and legally advised. And by the way, I wasn't the one sneaking around on company time." Silence. "Who was that?" Vanessa asked. Daniel ended the call. Now the panic was full-blown. He tried to accuse me of overreacting, of poisoning everything out of revenge. But I wasn't arguing. I was moving forward. By 2 p.m., a process server arrived at the door. Daniel was officially served. Divorce papers, restraining notice from the property, and a detailed request for temporary full custody, citing abandonment during medical recovery and emotional destabilization of the children. He turned to me furious. "You told them I abandoned you?" I met his rage with the calmest voice I could manage. "I didn't tell them anything. I gave them the timeline, the receipts, the footage, the voice recordings. Your own words did the rest." That night, I didn't cry. I slept like I hadn't in weeks. And the next morning, I went to work. My patients still needed me. My kids still needed me. And as far as Daniel was concerned, he no longer existed in my routine. But then came the real twist. 3 days later, Evelyn called me. "Claire," she said, "did you know Vanessa is married?" I sat up. "What?" "Oh, yes. And her husband just contacted me. He's got his own attorney now. And guess what? He wants to file a joint complaint with us. Workplace misconduct, fraudulent misuse of corporate funds, adultery with legal consequences." I couldn't believe it. This wasn't just divorce anymore. It was about to become an HR scandal, a corporate liability, and possibly a legal nightmare for Daniel and his little soulmate. And then came the day of the custody hearing. Daniel arrived in a wrinkled shirt, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Vanessa wasn't with him. She had been placed on leave pending internal investigation. I, on the other hand, walked in holding a folder of evidence and a letter from my surgeon, describing how I had undergone major surgery and received no support during my recovery. The judge barely looked at Daniel. "I see clear evidence of emotional neglect and instability," he said. "Temporary full custody is granted to the mother. Financial penalties for breach of spousal duty will be discussed in follow-up." Daniel didn't speak, not a single word. He just sat there, deflated, watching as the life he had chosen crumbled in real time. And I didn't smile. Not then, but I felt the first crack of light breaking through. Daniel tried to hold it together, but the crack spread fast. After the court hearing, word got around his office faster than wildfire. He wasn't just the guy who cheated on his wife. He was the guy who used company funds to do it, who brought his affair into the workplace, who humiliated the firm. Within a week, his access was revoked. 2 weeks later, he was officially let go. Vanessa? She didn't last long either. Her husband, now also her soon-to-be ex, posted screenshots of her emails with Daniel on a private Facebook group that went very public, very fast. Parents at Lily's school started whispering. A few of them sent me messages. Women I barely knew, telling me I was strong, an inspiration, an example. I didn't respond. I was still healing. Daniel tried to reach out. At first, it was angry texts, blaming me for everything. "You ruined my life. This didn't have to go this far. You're teaching our kids to hate me." Then it turned into desperation. "Please, I need to see them. I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I never blocked him. I just let the silence answer for me. He moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. No furniture, no job, no Vanessa. She had gone radio silent. Rumor was she moved back in with her parents 2 states away. The man who once stood tall in our kitchen, giving me a Sunday deadline to leave, now walked with his head down, ducking glances in the grocery store aisles. And still, he never once said he was sorry. That was the part I found both infuriating and freeing, because I realized, finally, that I didn't need his apology. He was living the consequence. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was peaceful. With Daniel out of the house and the divorce process moving steadily forward, I finally had space to breathe, to think, to rebuild. Not just my life, but myself. I decorated the bedroom, got rid of the sheets he liked, and bought a soft lavender set I'd always wanted, but wasn't his style. I painted the bathroom a warm blush tone and let Lily help. Max picked out a new superhero nightlight. The house began to feel like mine, ours, not haunted by what used to be. At work, I took on a leadership role. My nurse manager noticed the fire in me, the precision. She asked me to train new hires, mentor interns. She said I had natural command. And for the first time in years, I believed her. I joined a local women's support group. At first, I didn't say much, just listened. But then one evening, I told my story. I didn't cry. I didn't break down. I spoke with clarity. And when I finished, there was a pause, then applause. One woman hugged me. Another whispered, "Thank you for saying what I couldn't." I wasn't just surviving. I was becoming someone new. Someone strong, wise, and sharp enough to spot betrayal from a mile away. And my children, they smiled more, laughed louder. Lily even said one night as I tucked her in, "You seem happier now, Mom." That meant more than any court win. Daniel faded like an old bruise, still visible but no longer painful. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had something better. Power. People always say time heals all wounds, but that's not true. Time doesn't heal, truth does. Boundaries do. Choosing yourself does. I used to think love meant sacrifice, that being a good wife meant giving more than I got and staying even when it hurt. But now I know better. Love without respect isn't love. And a partner who disappears when you're at your weakest was never really standing beside you at all. What Daniel did nearly broke me, but only because I had forgotten who I was. I'm not just a nurse. I'm not just a mom. I'm not just someone's wife. I am a woman who rebuilt her life from the ground up, who took betrayal and turned it into fuel, who proved that being left behind doesn't mean being lost. It means you're finally free to walk your own path without carrying someone else's dead weight. And if I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't. Because now I wake up in a house filled with laughter. I go to work knowing I'm valued. I go to sleep knowing I'm enough. And I've learned one unshakable truth. Success is the best revenge.